Ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome Honorable Supervisor Joseph Saladino. I'm going to get you the mic. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harry Malhotra. I work for Honorable Supervisor Saladino at the town of Oyster Bay. I welcome you all tonight at this magical historical event celebrating Black History Month celebrations for the first time ever at town of Oyster Bay with Honorable Supervisor Saladino, Mr. Tom Hand, Councilman of town of Oyster Bay, Harry Barrar from Asian American Affairs, my dear friend Lionel Chitty, Executive Director, Minority Affairs, Dan Alter, Special Constituent to County Executive, Mr. Bruce Blakeman, and all the friends and people who have taken their time out to join us. At this point, we will begin the program for tonight. I would request Ms. Carol Gordon to kindly start with Pledge of Allegiance. Please, ma'am. If everybody can stand, please.
Okay, everybody have their hand? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may all be seated?
Yes.
Okay.
I would request Ms. Patty, if you can come in here, because we have a small presentation, and then after that, we will go into the national anthem, and then we have a great performer, Mr. Robert Capers, who will perform the African national anthem as well. Thank you so much, sir. We're going to present you with a small video. If you can pay attention to the television sets, it's in the honor of the leaders that paved the way and inspired us all.
Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of fate, I hear us bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet, the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
This is the most important and crucial period of your lives, for what you do now and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one, in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. And finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal stair. We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
There's an African-American song, 19th century, which is so great. It says, when it looked like the sun wasn't gonna shine anymore, God put a rainbow in the clouds. Imagine. And I've had so many rainbows in my clouds. I had a lot of clouds. But I have had so many rainbows. And one of the things I do when I step up on a stage, when I stand up to translate, when I go to teach my classes, when I go to direct a movie, I bring everyone who has ever been kind to me with me. Black, white, Asian, Spanish-speaking, Native American, gay, straight, everybody. I say, come with me. I'm going on the stage. Come with me, I need you now. Long dead, you see? So I don't ever feel I have no help. I've had rainbows in my clouds. And the thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so that you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. Somebody who may not look like you, may not call God the same name you call God, if they call God at all. You see? And may not eat the same dishes prepared the way you do, may not dance your dances or speak your language, but be a blessing to somebody. That's what I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I may request everybody please stand up again. We're going to play National Anthem by the one and only late Miss Whitney Houston.
Oh, say, can you see by God's arms early light what so proudly we hailed
Gentlemen, I would request everybody to remain standing. And Patty, if you can turn the lights on, please. We have a wonderful, wonderful performer, Mr. Robert, who will be performing the African national anthem and playing the keyboard as well. And I especially want to thank Reverend Kent, who arranged Mr. Robert for us. He's traveled quite a far distance. Reverend Kent will be joining us in a few minutes. He had an emergency, but he's on his way. We have great performers tonight. We're going to have the spoken word by Mr. Gregory Singer. Amazing voice, what bass in his voice. We're going to have a few speeches, and we're going to be presenting Supervisor Saladino and Mr. Tom and Kente. What is Kente? I will leave that to my friend, Mr. Lionel Chitty, to explain you that. We're just waiting for Mr. Robert. You need my help? And feel free to join in if you know the words, please.
I apologize for technical difficulty.
Thank you. Mr. Robert will be performing a couple more songs a bit later. I want to request Ms. Denise Evans Shepherd from the Oyster Bay Historical Society. She has a beautiful presentation ready for us. Patty, if we can have the lights down again, please, one last time. And Mr. Chitty, we need your help on the laptop, please. Great documents, amazing work done by Ms. Denise and by Oyster Bay Historical Society. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Evans Shepherd. I am the Executive Director for the Oyster Bay Historical Society, and I would like to thank you for inviting me here today to do this presentation. Mr. Chitty, wherever you are. Oh, there you are. My glasses are over there. But I want to thank you for having me here as an honor, as the first program. I appreciate that. And as the first African-American woman to hold the position as director is definitely an honor. What I tried to do is put together little snippets of Oyster Bay's history as it reflects African Americans within the town of Oyster Bay. And this project or program that I put together is based on evidenced primary and secondary resources that we hold in our collections at the Oyster Bay Historical Society. We have approximately 16,000 manuscripts, ledgers, account books, photos, oral histories, and a lot of family donations and community donations. So, thank you. And as I mentioned, this is where most of my resources have come from. And I must say that as a child growing up here in Oyster Bay, my family often talked about different families that had migrated to the area, but they often spoke of this one person that I never had a chance to understand who he was until they started talking more about what he had done in the community. And when I became, of age, a little older, I started to read different things, different programs, and different stories about people of color in the Oyster Bay Guardian. And I must say, the town of Oyster Bay historian, John Hammond, was the person who kind of gave me an understanding of certain people as well, besides my family, because he was able to give me put it in the context of who the person was in the framework of where they were in the town. And it's basically based on this record here. This is the earliest record of a person of color in the town of Oyster Bay, which is a really early record of 1685. This person's name was Owa. That was his African name from the west coast of Africa. And when he came to Oyster Bay, he was given a name, and we heard this name through our family, of Black Tom. But we really didn't know of who he was or his significance other than what he did within our community. I lived in the same community as Black Tom. And he was able to become manumitted because his slave holder, his slave master, had guaranteed his freedom in his probate will. And he was only 24 years old, but what he had done was significant because what he was able to do was envision how he wanted to make money and in a time where people were getting, I guess, free labor. So he had to reinvent himself. He had to, I guess, make his business a little different from what everybody else was doing. And doing that, he became one of the earlier landscapers of the area. And what he had done was he adorned the Pine Hollow area, which is the gateway into Oyster Bay, with beautiful trees, colored bushes, to make people want to come into Oyster Bay, that invited them into Oyster Bay. And many people like that. The people that own these various estates throughout the community selected him to do their landscaping. And that's how he made his business. So he was an entrepreneur. He was the first person of color on record that was manumitted as early as 1685. Oyster Bay became the town of Oyster Bay in 1653. So it gives you an understanding as to where he was in a time when slavery was really rampant here, but he made something of himself and made people respect the fact that he had a talent and a skill that many people wanted to use at that time. This document here shows that he purchased his wife in 1717 for 60 pounds. His wife was enslaved up, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the area, but where Jericho Cider Mill, she was enslaved there. And what a lot of people aren't aware is that Oyster Bay and the surrounding areas had little pockets of enslaved or communities of color that thrived. So she was from the Jericho community, but he purchased her from her master for 60 pounds so that he could marry her. And this is the earliest record that we have in regards to family dynamics in the context of family life. 1720, he purchased property in Oyster Bay. So now you're going from someone who was enslaved, someone who purchased their wife to have a family, and now homeowners. So an earlier record of who he was as a homeowner. And again, this is all in the Pine Hollow area of Oyster Bay. Oops, I'm going backwards, sorry about that. Okay. He had purchased his son-in-law for 80 pounds as he moved down through the years. And this is somewhat familiar with a lot of people that were beginning to earn their freedom at that time. They were buying or purchasing other enslaved people because they wanted to make them part of their home. They wanted to make them part of their family. And this is not an unusual record. However, in this area and within this community, I thought it was dynamic to show how people of color were buying slaves so that they can make them part of their family. I'm horrible when it comes to technology. As you can see at this is going to be ongoing changing. You see the numbers changing. In 1790, New York State was one of the largest slaveholding states in the country. As later, I guess in 1800s, as you can kind of see, is gradually changing. So New York became slowly free compared to Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and other states in the north. When they passed the legislation that New York State was going to, I guess, abolish slavery in 1827, they had made an understanding that any child born in around 1799 were to be born free. So it was basically one of the, New York State legislation. But they were having a lot of difficulty passing that legislation because out of 24 people in the Senate, 17 people were slaveholders. So they had to actually figure out how to overcome that barrier. Okay. The census is a document that many people may know how to read and some people don't, but a lot of genealogists look at this document to understand where people were at that time, who the slaveholders were, how many slaves did they hold, their female, male, age, and so forth. But in 1790, in the town of Oyster Bay, they had roughly 17% of an African-American demographic. But most of that was because of the enslavement. But now, in the town of Oyster Bay, there's only like 2.3% of an African-American demographic. And I love census because it gives you an understanding as to who your neighbors were, what type of activities, the skills that they may have had, who your neighbors were and things of that nature. So it gives you an understanding if they could read or write. And Census is something that I often looked at from 1790 all that time, a lot of stuff. People that kind of, I guess, added to the community, even though he did not live in Oyster Bay, but lived in the surrounding area, such as Lloyd's Neck, was Jupiter Hammond, who was the earliest poet, African-American published poet in the country. You know, and to have someone to talk about the enslavement of people through his poetry was very dynamic, and you really don't find too many people. And he was one of the earliest people that could read, write, and was able to enjoy that privilege with the rest of the people that he lived with over in Lloyd's Neck. If anybody has ever been there, I think it's something to visit, you know, to see where they had lived and to see the interaction between people. And one of the things I do want to say and emphasize as well is that in these communities, in these pockets, and I know it may be hard to understand, but many people got along well compared to other communities. I have to say Oyster Bay was very progressive in the way that they educated their students, in the way that the students learned, and even with the churches, which is something that I'll talk about in a few. These are the communities of color within Oyster Bay. Pine Hollow, as I mentioned, as early as 1685. Mill River Road was also considered Poverty Hollow in the 1800s. And most people that served in the Civil War moved to that area of town, as well as Pine Hollow, but you saw more people living in Mill River Road. In Oyster Bay Cove, many of the people that owned these estates had tenant houses where people lived that worked for them. So in one of the documents that at the Historical Society, you kind of read the journals of what it was like for kids that were young who lived, you know, with their parents, speaking about the holidays, the Christmases, the Thanksgivings, watching how these, you know, these people, African-American people, would cook dinner, prepare for holiday festivities. And we have a lot of account books and journals that discuss this at the Society, which I thought was very fascinating. When the migration came, many people lived in the area called the Battery. The Battery is where you see the big oil tanks here in town. That was considered the Battery. And Tin Pan Alley is actually the parking lot behind the Historical Society. That's where most people that migrated from the South during the Great Migration lived. And now we have, you know, the town of Oyster Bay Housing, which was really initially called the Martin Luther King Apartments, based on the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And these are the areas that most people of color lived. The economic stability and growth within the town was based on the whaling industry. My great-great-grandfather's two oldest brothers served on both of those vessels, the Tuscarora and the Talmadge, out in Cold Spring Harbor. So they were the initial people that went out there chasing whales around the South Pacific to get the oil and the blubber to get back to light the candles or light the oil lanterns and things like that. And you'll have that information over at the Cold Spring Harbor Whaling Museum. But this was an earlier part of the economic stability, sustainability within the town, and how they saw the growth of money and things started to change around this time. Along with the oyster industry here, many of the people that migrated up from the South, you know, knew the industry, especially the peoples from Exmoor, Maryland, and Accomack County, Virginia. We see, well, we have seen a large group of people, actually earlier in the 1800s, that migrated from those areas to Oyster Bay, Cold Spring Harbor, to add to that industry because they knew it so well. And at the time, Oyster Bay needed people to work in those industries, and they were able to add to that. So the whaling industry, the oyster industry was something that many people of color had contributed to over the years. Hood AME Zion Church is one of the earliest denominations here. Besides the New Light Baptist Church, which Marmaduke Earl, actually the headquarters of the Oyster Bay Historical Society, he was the pastor of New Light Baptist Church in Oyster Bay. And what was progressive about his congregation was that he allowed the African Americans to congregate with the rest of his, membership. He had baptismals, he had marriages, communion with everyone. And as I mentioned, Oyster Bay was very progressive, so you had so many different denominations here, but apparently his was more progressive than most. But I noticed that looking in the records, many people that were in his earlier congregation had moved over to the AME Zion Church in 1848. So they started off there, but based on, I guess, the donation of the property, which was donated by John Weeks and his wife Alice in 1848, they were able to donate the property and congregate in the parsonage for the AME Zion Church in Oyster Bay. And many have followed over from there. They also granted them property in the Pine Hollow area to have a cemetery known as the Pine Hollow Cemetery, which was the next, how can I say, it was landmarked actually in 2018. I worked on that to get landmarked. But they donated the property in 1888 for the cemetery, which was years later. But it's really interesting, at the time, like, community helped each other. Community helped each other. They saw the need for a church, they saw the need for a place to bury their dead, and they did so. And then for the free, this is for the free people of color, and then for the enslaved people, is actually at the Young Cemetery, which is where Theodore Roosevelt is interred. So you see the white crosses, which indicate the enslaved people that worked either on their, on the Young Cemetery, or the Young's family, or others that lived in that area. Many people that are buried here are Civil War veterans, actually Harlem Hellfighters, any type of war engagement after, of course, 1888, those people are interred here. And the people that worked on the cemetery to help for those who could not afford headstones were Wren and Gordon Maddox Sr. and his brother. They were brothers. And one worked for Grumman Aerospace and Technology. David Carl, who is my great-great-grandfather, he served in United States Colored Troops here in Oyster Bay, and there was 3 regiments that were founded in New York State, the 20th, the 26th, and 33rd. And what was really understanding of that time was that James Roosevelt was instrumental in, I guess, raising those 3 regiments in the state of New York for people of color to fight. And these were he was one of the 13 people in the town of Oyster Bay to serve. And what he also did was he had his own business, transporting freight along the Atlantic coast and across the Sound to Connecticut. And you saw a lot of that too. People were starting to do their own thing. They wanted their own businesses. They wanted their own properties. And he actually purchased property from the monies that were given to him from the Civil War to purchase property in Pine Hollow for him and his family. So he actually laid the blueprint for me and my family, because I live in his house that he built in 1865. This is his son, one of his oldest sons. I know he doesn't look like him. He was his oldest son, Frank. Frank also had his own business. He had his own garbage hauling business in the first in Oyster Bay. He collected in Muttontown, Brookville, Cold Spring Harbor, Woodbury, and Jericho. And like I said, you know, there were all these little different pockets of people of color that lived in these areas. But he not only picked the garbage for them, but he picked the garbage for these estates here in Oyster Bay. And there's a lot of journals regarding that, when he used to come, pick up the, you know, the time that he would get there, who would be waiting for him at the door so that they can open the gate for him to pick up the trash. This is the Miller, Maddox, and Cunningham family of Oyster Bay. They worked for the Theodore Roosevelt family on Sagamore Hill, and you saw a lot of that as well. A lot of servitude, if you were a domestic, a chauffeur, anything of that nature, that was really held in high regard back then, because it provided a place for, you know, your family and food for your family. They were one of the earliest. She lived to be over 100 years old. Her and her husband both worked for the Roosevelt family. And, you know, it gave you an understanding of the people that were working in servitude opposed to the people that were working for themselves. And that was the diversity here. The right to vote. Mary Tankard, another interesting individual who was from the Accomack County, Virginia, for the Great Migration. She took her whole family and all her family friends in a small town, and they all came to Oyster Bay in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The whole town, I can't even envision a whole town in Virginia, and brought them to Oyster Bay. She was the reason for them all coming to escape Jim Crow, to provide better housing for her for the family and for the future of her grandchildren and so forth. What I thought was ironic with her is that she and her family were the ones that started the Baptist Church here in Oyster Bay. The building is still standing. It's right across from People Helping People. That was the initial building for the Baptist Church, for the Mount Olive Baptist Church, which is now on South Street. But not only was she significant with that, her family was also significant in the early voting rights here in Oyster Bay, way before voting rights was even considered for people of color. And it was because of her that swung a vote to put somebody in office. She was, she was a Republican. So we have a whole bunch of information about her and her family, the voting and everything, where, like I said, it wasn't really a problem here in Oyster Bay. Mary DeMonto Cunningham. She was the first woman, one of the first Ebony magazine models, right here from Oyster Bay. Her grandparents were the ones that worked for the Sagamore Hill Theodore Roosevelt family. She was a woman's auxiliary, and she had a very interesting life. She used to march every year in the parade. I remember her very fondly. But during the Harlem Renaissance, all these different people started to come to Oyster Bay. They were attracted to the scenery. They were attracted to the Gold Coast. They liked the area. They felt comfortable. So you would see people like Louis Armstrong. You would see Lena Horne, Cab Calloway, all these different artists and entertainers that would surface the area. You had the Cotton Club. People from Oyster Bay were part of the Cotton Club. It was a beautiful place in such a beautiful time. And the last photo, or part of the presentation, is the political significance, where you had John Amos. John Amos was James Amos, I'm sorry, was one of the earliest FBI agents that worked for Sagamore Hill as well as for Theodore Roosevelt. He was his bodyguard, and he was the first FBI agent of color that lived right here in the town of Oyster Bay. So before I leave, I have one last little thing that I want to show. And it's just an understanding as to the town we live in, which is such a great town. And, you know, I look at the past, and in order for me to move forward, I have to know where I come from. And our family has been here since the 1700s, and I appreciate their tenacity and their resilience, and I look forward to my family continuing their spirit. So I just want to add this last, and these are all family photos.
Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
This is a picture of my great-great-uncle who worked for the Oyster Bay Guardian.
Was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on beauty in the moonlight. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne and cut your hair. And from your lips she drew hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked before. Used to live alone before I knew you. But I've seen your flag on the Marble Arch. Our love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken
This picture was taken in front of the first bank in Oyster Bay. My grandfather's marching band in 1919. (1905) kindergarten picture in Oyster Bay. My grandfather's kindergarten picture.
Maybe there's a God above. All I ever know is how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. It's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold.
His father served with Theodore Roosevelt's Rough Rider Regiment. Esther Lewis. Like I said, the entertainers were in Oyster Bay all the time. My cousins who were in the Cotton Club. My mother. That's Oyster Bay Harbor. Thank you.
Ms. Denise, thank you so much. That was just wonderful. I would request Honorable Supervisor Saladino to please stand up and Mr. Tom Hand to please stand up where they're sitting. And now, I would request Mr. Lionel Chitty to honor them with the Kente, and the next speaker is as well Mr. Lionel Chitty. He will come and explain what Kente actually is. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Mr. Lionel Chitty, Mr. Honorable Supervisor Saladino, and Mr. Tom Hand.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you, everyone. What a wonderful, fantastic presentation. Just wanted to explain, as Harry mentioned before, I just want to explain the Kente call. Kente is a meaningful historical device, as every aspect of its aesthetic design is intended as communication. The colors of the cloth each hold symbolism: gold, status and serenity; yellow, fertility; green, renewal; blue, pure spirit, harmony; red, passion; black, union and ancestral spiritual awareness. Supervisor Saladino, Councilman Tom Ham, I'd like to present you with the Kente cloth.
I want to request Mr. Lionel Chitty to say a few words. Thank you so much, Lionel. Let me just give a short story behind this event. We were actually somewhere where we meet and discuss the daily routines. And so I'm, taking upon this responsibility of doing events. We recently did the Lunar New Year. That was for the first time. And it's an honor to be a part of Supervisor Saladino's team and the town board. He's known hitting the ball out of the park. When I say it, I mean it literally. The first Iftar was celebrated by town of Oyster Bay. The first Indian flag hoisting, Pakistan flag hoisting, the first Lunar New Year's event, the first Black History Month today. So thank you so much for opening up the doors for everybody and giving everybody a seat at the table, sir. So coming back to my story, Lionel and me, we were sitting at a very important place and discussing things at the end of the day, and I'm like, you know what, why don't we do, Black History Month? I'm like, you do it in the county, it happens annually, does it? Yes.
Yes.
I want to make sure. And I'm like, I would like to do this at Town of Oyster Bay. I'm like, I'm sure that it will happen. He's like, let's ask. And I texted Mr. Brian Nevin, who's my, point of contact. Within a matter of, I think, 2.5 minutes, he's like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, he's like, how are we going to put this together? And this is within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks we did this. And Supervisor Saladino goes, why haven't you thought about this? This is what he said when I did the Lunar. And I'm like, sir, sorry, I'm catching up. I'm a bit slow. So thank you so much, Lionel. And to everybody who's attending, Mr. Lionel Chitty, Executive Director, Minority Affairs, ladies and gentlemen.
Again, thank you very much. It is truly a pleasure to be here. I'd like to start by, again, thank you, Supervisor Saladino. First time here in Oyster Bay, and what a fantastic presentation. We truly appreciate it. I also want to thank County Executive Bruce Blakeman. He makes sure that, and he encourages us to come out, participate in events like this, fantastic events throughout all different types of communities, so we just want to be thankful to him also. Black History Month is important for many reasons. One is simply that the rich culture of our African Americans is far too significant to ignore. The achievements of African Americans are integral to the foundation of our American society and history. Carter G. Woodson and Minister Jesse Moreland founded the Association of the Study of Negro Life and History to research and promote the achievements of Black Americans and other people of African ancestry. In 1926, the organization sponsored the first Negro History Week. The month of February was chosen to honor the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. The event has grown in significance and scope over the years, as it has served to focus our attention on Black excellence. However, an appreciation of these contributions should be ongoing. Examples of Black excellence. Some will sound familiar, some will not. Phyllis Wheatley, first African American to publish a book of poetry. Stevie Wonder, first Black artist to win a Grammy for the Album of the Year. Bryant Gumbel, the first Black person to host a morning show. Christina M. Jenkins invented the hair weave, earned a patent for her creation in 1952. Lisa Galopter developed shockwave technology, web animation, and GIFs. Frederick McKinley Jones invented the roof-mounted cooling system used on trucks, also known as Thermo King. Elijah McCoy devised a method that automated the lubrication systems on trains to prevent the trains from sticking to the tracks. Mary Van Brittan Brown created a patent for the home security system. Philip Emeagwali, high school dropout, invented the world's first supercomputer. Charles Drew worked on developing blood banks, plasma programs, and the mobile bloodmobile. Lonnie G. Johnson created the Super Soaker water gun. Otis Boykin developed circuit improvements to the pacemaker developed by IBM. Louis Latimer created the carbon filament for the light bulb and drafted the patent for Bell's design of the telephone. Dr. Shirley Jackson owns the patent for the touch-tone telephone, caller ID, call waiting, portable fax, and fiber optic cable. Garrett Morgan created gas masks and added the third position to the traffic signal to reduce accidents. My favorite example of Black excellence, San Francisco barber Willie Morrow, creator of the nation's famed curl, or the California curl, hairstyle of the 1980s. Believe it or not, after he amassed his fortune, he traveled the world and created the Morrow Family Hair Care Artifact Collection. This presentation of hair care showed curling irons and combs used during the 1800s and the evolution of Black hair care gathered from around the world. The achievements I reference are not just small pieces of the contributions made by African Americans and their achievements. Today we honor those that made significant contributions to the development, advancement, and betterment of economic employment, business, and cultural opportunities for African Americans. Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor, Honorable Supervisor Joseph Saladino, refers to the town of Oyster Bay as a mosaic, a blending of different people, cultures, and backgrounds. The values we all share are what makes us Americans. In my office, we have a huge banner on the wall. It shows pictures of over 240 Black artists, singers, dancers, entrepreneurs, inventors, leaders, journalists, athletes, activists, statesmen, educators, scholars. When you look at that banner, it says, the heading says, Celebrating Black History Month Forever, but with the words Black and the word month crossed out in bold red. We celebrate history every month, every day. The history of African Americans is American history. Again, I thank Supervisor Saladino, his entire team, Harry Malhotra here at the town of Oyster Bay, our good friends here, for putting this together to acknowledge the accomplishments of African Americans here in the town of Oyster Bay. Thank you and congratulations to all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting more time, I would like to request Mr. Tim Williams, Chairman of the Long Island IDA, to say a few words, and after that will be I'm finishing up the politics and the business aspect of the event first, and then I have Reverend Kent, who'll be educating us, and then I have Mr. Abdullah Diba, Imam who's come a long way, all the way from Philadelphia, to join us and say a few words. Mr. Tim Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody coming out. It's a wonderful event, and I want to say, Denise, that was absolutely fantastic. Really, really was. You know, we take for granted sometimes, even in Black History Month, what those have done for us, and they're the reason we stand here today in every way possible, and we really should continue to honor them. And your family is, you know, they're inspiring, and they are the fabric of Long Island. They're the fabric of Oyster Bay, and I think all of us who grew up here on Long Island really understand that connection when you look back and look at how much they achieved and look at how much more we have still to do. I think that's very important. And so, great job again, fantastic. To the supervisor, a great friend, great leader, and as long as it's not being recorded, the best supervisor on Long Island. Don't tell Don Clavin I said that, right? And to the council members and to everyone, you guys have done a fantastic job of including diversity and inclusion in the fabric of your agenda. I think I will say, fortunately, unfortunately, fortunately, this is the first. But it is fortunate that it won't be the last. And so I'm very thankful to Harry for having the vision to do it, for Lionel for participating, and for the supervisor who, for the first time in Oyster Bay history, said, of course. Absolutely. So I have the pleasure of serving as, I got a promotion here, as on the board of the Nassau County IDA. And I did have the pleasure of serving as the chairman for several years. I had the distinct pleasure of serving as the first African American to ever be chairman in Long Island history for an economic development agency. And so that's most important when you look at how and where we've come and how we've gotten here. You look at all the things, the concept and the idea that a man had to buy his wife, that a man had to buy another person, not in the context of slavery, but in the context of freedom, right? So we always talk about that, you know, they bought this one and this family owned this family, but think about the love it takes and the blessings of God it must take for a man to achieve his freedom and then look back and then buy somebody else's freedom and hand it to him. Not because of a sense of guilt that they were a slave owner and that they were, you know, you know, you worked for me for so many years, so I gave you your freedom. But a man worked hard and earned just to buy his wife's and then his family's freedom. If that is not a legacy worth honoring, then there is no other ones. And Lionel said it right, Black history is American history. So when we talk about economics and we talk about the contributions that African Americans and that all communities have made, think of Oyster Bay is a phenomenal example. There is probably few better melting pots that create an economic engine unlike Oyster Bay. You've got Southeast Asians, you have Asian community, you have African American, you have Hispanic, and probably 2 or 3 other communities that are driving the growth and that everybody who lives here benefits from on a daily basis. And so it's important that as we look at how we think about economics, how we think about what should be built here, why should it be built here, we've got to consider every element of every community, of every member, both today and yesterday. We also have to think about all these firsts we have. We had our first Black president, Obama. We had the first man to sit on the Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall. We have the first guy to serve as chair of the economic development. Well, the question becomes who will be next? right? As our responsibility to not just honor all the people from 100 years and 200 years ago, but to honor all of the leaders like Brandon Ray and Walter Odin and Lionel Chitty and Supervisor Saladino and all of the people who contribute to developing a strong community. It's important we honor them because it's the children, it's the next generation of leaders that we must inspire. We must prove to them that yes, you can do it. Hard work pays off. Yes, you must look back in order to go forward. Yes, it's not just good enough to see somebody that's below you, but you've got to reach down and pull them up to where you're at and then move forward together. And we've got to do it as a fabric of a community. We've got, just like the Kente cloth, it's got to be woven into everything we do. So Supervisor, Councilman, I really appreciate you guys doing this. Harry, phenomenal idea, phenomenal execution, and I congratulate everybody and look forward to many more years of the supervisor standing and welcoming and honoring more and more African Americans who continue to contribute in Oyster Bay.
And Mr. Tim Williams, by the way, we are live on Facebook, and it is being recorded. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know how to introduce the next guest, Reverend Kent Edmonston. When I put his name on the flyer, I called him the next day, and of course, Martin Luther King Day, Honorable Supervisor and the whole team had congratulated him, honored him. He served the communities for so long, just like Ms. Denise Shepard's family. I have no words, but his grace, his wisdom, let him speak and you will cherish the words he says here tonight. Kindly give a big round of applause to Mr. Reverend Kent Edmonston, please.
Say good evening to our supervisor, Mr. Saladino, to the councilman, and to all of the council persons, to those who have spoken already. Amen. I was getting ready to say to myself, I said, well, what else can you say, Rev? Everything's been really kind of said. I want to thank Sister Shepard for the history here in Oyster Bay, which Mount Olive plays a part in, because the Mount Olive Baptist Church came out of Hood AME. Amen. I understand that there were Baptists that were with them, and then at some point they split off and started their own. Tankard is part of that history, and so I was kind of pleased to hear that. Some things that I didn't know and some things that I did know. But I am grateful tonight to be a part of this historical moment in the life of Oyster Bay. I've been here 20 years, and it has been a great, great blessing. I wanted to go through some of the history. First, I thought maybe I'd talk about Mount Olive, and I said, no, what are you going to say about Mount Olive? But that it's a rich history. We've been here 90 years, 91 years this year, December, second Sunday in December. I've been in Oyster Bay 20 years, and again, I have to say that I'm grateful. Tonight has been interesting. Had an emergency call, and I called Harry. I said, listen, Harry, I'm running late, man. I don't know. It was a family situation and hospital and so forth. And I said, your first duty is to your family. Rushed down all the way out to LaGuardia Airport. It's coming down Jericho. I said, listen, I'm on my way, man. I am coming. I am on my way. But we have to recognize and realize that family is first. Family is first. My wife would have been here tonight, but she took them on. I said, listen, y'all got to go to Oyster Bay with me because I got to at least show my face. If I don't do nothing else, I've got to show my face. But when we look at the rich history of African American, Black Americans, however you want to term it, we are, without question, part of the American history. And when you look at all the contributions, and I listen to Lionel very closely because he had all my speech. I said, oh, Lord, you're going to have to find something else to say tonight, Rev. I said, we have a rich history. We have played a major part. And we have to recognize and we have to remind our children that you did not come over as a servant, but you came over with a rich history and that you have the ability to do anything. And the opportunity is here. I think tonight that as I looked at that history, I couldn't help but go back as a young man. And thank you, Brother Capers, for being with me tonight. Couldn't help but go back and look at the history of America and what we have come through. And we're still standing strong. And I had to wonder to myself, why would a young black man from Macon, Georgia, with his hair pressed, sang one hit after another, y'all know him, James Brown. And then he would stand up and say, I'm black and I am proud. Because a lot of folk will make you think that we were just slaves. But we weren't just slaves. When you hear that inventors list, the Lionel, he only covered part of it. I got the other part here, but I'm not going to go through it. We have contributed. We have been part of the fabric, and we've got to continue to stand strong. I thank the town supervisor. He comes to Mount Olive. He ain't been there a while, but he comes to Mount Olive every now and then, and he plays the drums. Rev, can I play? Yeah, man, you can play. This house, your house. I thank him for his spirit, and he knows I pray for him constantly. Lord, cover, keep, watch over, and bless Oyster Bay. Amen. All the way from the north to the south, because I understand Massapequa part of it. I ain't leaving nobody out. But I thank the Lord. Raised in Hempstead. Hempstead High graduate. And who would have thought? But 20 years here in Oyster Bay, and my wife, and I used to be upset when we first came to Oyster Bay. I don't want to go to Oyster Bay. And I was still teaching over in Hempstead. And my wife said, you must be crazy. You must be out your mind. And then when you cross over and come down 106, it's just like going on vacation. And go out to the bay and just watch the boats. I'm still praying for a boat. So y'all pray for me. But again, congratulations to this great historical moment in time, and I am thankful to be a part of the Oyster Bay fabric. God bless you, and may heaven smile upon you.
See, that's why I got the business folks out of the way first. You felt that spirit, didn't you? Ladies and gentlemen, last but not the least, and Mr. Abdullah Diba, who's come all the way from Philadelphia, Imam of the Muslim Ahmadiyya community. My friend Zishan, if you know Shaheen Restaurant in Hicksville, one of the oldest restaurants in Hicksville, started by his grandfather. He still follows the recipes, doesn't want to give it to me because I cook sometimes. But When Zishan found out we're celebrating the Black History Month, he said, "Can I be a part of it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." These events that we do, one person cannot do this. It cannot be one person. The whole team, just comes together. Mr. Mukesh Modi, who's a South Asian business owner, he's here. Lionel Chitty, of course, with the blessing of Honorable Supervisor, but everybody works together. So I will lie if I take the credit. I called Reverend Kent, and I'm like, I need a band, a musician. Brother Robert is here. I call Lionel, and I'm like, I need somebody to say poetry, because Maya Angelou is my favorite. I read about her poetry all the time. And because of that, I got Mr. Gregory Singer, who's going to say the spoken word. But Mr. Abdullah Diba, all the way from Philadelphia, because of my brother Zishan over here. Please give him a big round of applause.
Good evening, everybody. I must say I really enjoyed the energy in here. I don't feel like a guest. I already feel like I'm part of this. So thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed that presentation and everything that you've all said. I've really got to learn about this great town. Zishan, we were on a drive and he told me a little bit about Oyster Bay, but I really appreciate the history and it means a lot just learning from all of you. It's so often that when we talk about the history of Black people, we talk about the doom and gloom. We talk about the sad days, but thank you for reminding us that there's so many important things. There's so many reasons for us to rejoice and remember the sacrifices of so many people that have lived in this country and elsewhere around the world that deserve to be remembered, and who are also reasons for us to be proud of who we are. In the beginning, they were free. Everybody was free in the beginning. That's everyone's history. They governed, they traded, they took care of their affairs on a social, communal, national levels, and even across borders. This was a norm for everybody. This is everyone's history. It didn't start with slavery. It didn't start with wars. Wars came later. And as wars and conflicts ensued, the men would be killed in many nations and they would be conquered. The women and children would be held captives. And as time went on, the wise people amongst them thought, instead of killing these men, why don't we capture them, make them our property? They'll work for us and we'll own them. And this is how slavery came into being in Rome, in Greece, in Persia, in Egypt, and other parts of the world. This would prove to change the economies, the history, the heritage, and legacy of many men, women, and children around the whole world. It was an action that was regarded as very inhumane across all civilizations, very immoral. But how are we supposed to correct this? As a representative of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, I can speak with some measurable authority as far as what Islam says about slavery, about doing wrong to others, on what solutions it suggests. But this is something that's not new to you. When we talk about Black history, we know about many Black Muslims in the United States of America who made some sort of contribution. So I'll give you a little bit of a different perspective. And that's the reason why I'm here. The message of Islam inspired many Black people in the history of the United States who stood up, they dedicated their lives to the pursuit of regaining freedom and complete emancipation of the Black man and all men from all forms of captivity. Some were labeled as controversial in their personality or the way they conveyed their message. The likes of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, they were given names, but Malcolm knew that he was being targeted to be labeled as a rebel. But he happily played the role of a villain so long as it led to his people no longer being treated like animals. The truth is that Malcolm was not violent. There were many other Black Muslims inspired by the Islamic message and the faith. They stood to regain the freedom of their people, and everyone deserved to enjoy that freedom. But if Malcolm was listening to me today, he wouldn't want me to remind you merely of who he was. What he would want is for me to attempt to explain to you in the limited time that I have the message they tried to convey in their own ways. What was the crux of that message? What was the source? The history of the free men that were transported in ships to America is that a lot of them were Muslim scholars. They were educators. They were known in their lands. They were historians. And many historians believe that at the conclusion of the first wave of Muslim migration, prior to the Civil War, Muslims represented up to 30% of the some 500,000 Africans enslaved in the United States. The enslaved Muslims were known to have been more active than other groups or the demographics in their resistance, their determination, and education. According to historical records, these Muslims not only conversed in Arabic, but they also wrote books and essays on the Quran. In fact, Sheikh Anta Diop, one of the biggest known African historians, would write that when Europeans were living in caves, Africans were building castles and they had libraries. This was the truth about the origin of those people that were put on ships when they're coming to the United States unwillingly. Some of them had put the entire Quran into memory. And while they were captives, they would write the whole Quran word for word because they knew it and it was part of their hearts and their minds. So the forces of the conquerors could conquer territories, but not the minds and hearts of these great people. Where I come from, in the Gambia in West Africa, many of the slaves came from there. Interestingly, up to this day today, 95% of my country, the Gambia, is still Muslim. And you would wonder, what happened to those that left those nations? What happened to their Islam? What happened to their faith when they came to America? So the history of black Muslim freedom fighters was a continuous process to retain their Muslim faith. They were not allowed to congregate to pray. They were not allowed to fast. They were forced to eat pork because as a Muslim, you're not allowed to eat pork. They were not allowed access to education, which was such an integral part of their faith. So this was one of the reasons that inspired me when I was 17 a few years ago to dedicate my life to learning and teaching Islam. And today, through the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, I am in America to regain that history and to reintroduce my long-lost cousins to Islam, whose ancestors had faith forcefully ripped away from them. But the black Muslim cause was not meant to exclude anyone else, nor was it seeking to disagree with other forms of efforts to get to the same end result. Malcolm X would say, ignorance of each other is what has made unity impossible in the past. Malcolm says, then we need enlightenment. We need more light about each other. Light creates understanding. Understanding creates love. Love creates patience. And patience creates unity. Once we have more knowledge, light about each other, we will stop condemning each other, and a united front will be brought about. End quote. What Malcolm was echoing is that 7th century Arabia was when slavery was a thing of pride. A voice was heard by the hopeless from the wilderness, the despaired, the weak, the downtrodden in the society. A 40-year-old man by the name of Muhammad, peace be upon him, started. He was talking about leniency and kindness towards slaves. His earliest revelations declared emancipation of slaves as an act of great virtue. He didn't start by riling up the slaves. He started by talking to those who owned slaves. He told them that emancipating them was a thing of great virtue, and that their reward would be with their Lord. There's a famous saying of his when he was teaching his companions. He told them that you need to stop and help the oppressor and the oppressed. So his companions asked him, we understand how the oppressed can be helped, but how do you help the oppressor? And the Prophet of Islam says, by holding their hand and stopping them from oppressing those whom they oppress. This is a way of helping them, and this is what he did. As a result, many slaves in Arabia then joined him, and they believed in him. They did not know what freedom meant, even though he was talking about freedom. They had never dreamt of it. Muhammad was commissioned to make them experience the kind of liberty even their forefathers never dreamt of. They never experienced it. He vowed to instill mercy and compassion among slave owners in a way that they would willingly become brothers of everyone, of a different race, of a different creed, of a different color. It is true that in the beginning, the Muslims were treating slaves as everybody else. But as they began to understand the Quran, as they began to get closer to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they began to study him. And they willingly gave up slavery. They willingly freed those people that they had captivated. They willingly gave away what, quote unquote, was their property. And the most amazing thing was that in the 23 years of the ministry of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he saw with his own eyes slave owners and slaves becoming brothers. He had effectively wiped out slavery from among the Muslims without the need for the slaves to rebel, nor did the slave owners find a reason to resist and protest. They became brothers, literally, within 23 years of his ministry. Today, we're almost made to accept that only black can stand for black. What Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us was that all must stand for black, all must stand for white, and all must stand for all, because if justice wins, everyone wins. Yet still, Islam recognizes as convenient and beneficial for certain purposes mankind's diversity of color, race, language, etc. This is unity in diversity. So yes, we should celebrate Black history. Whites should embrace their culture and be proud of it. Browns, natives, everybody has a right and should celebrate their kind and their history. If any Muslim sees this as a reason to reject someone or another color, then they are surely missing the point. They're surely missing the reason. Because the Quran in itself, in chapter 30, verse 23, tells us, and among his signs, that is the signs of God, is the creation of the heavens and earth, and the diversity of your tongues and your colors. In that surely are signs for those who possess knowledge. In the last decade of the 19th century, most of the world was under the threat of colonialism by Western world. Many oppressed people found little relief under such advances. This was when the founder of my community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, emerged as the promised Messiah to revive Islam and reintroduce those same teachings of Islam that were forgotten. Because today, when we look at Islam, and in the end of the 19th century, what we see was not a true representation of Islam. So his mission was to teach us what Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, taught in a way that he was able to wipe out slavery and all forms of oppression in his time. In 1921, the first missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community was sent to the United States, and it became the first Muslim organization in this country. Through this, many African Americans found religious freedom and spiritual harmony in that message, in the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat, and many great people became part of that history. But how does that help today? How does that approach help today? How does that message help us today? The future and destiny of this country and world is inextricably linked to the future and progress of truth and justice, starting with every single one of us in this room and outside. As we remind each other through the history of those Black people who stood for different causes they believed in, we must seize the day by truly believing that we all have individual and collective key roles to play in shaping the trajectory of this great nation. The investments of our Black leaders in education, in governance, in trade, in history, justice, law and order, freedom, on all the visions are living today. We must believe that they're living today. As always, challenges of variety and volume stood in the way of practical initiation of the vision and aspiration of our forefathers and mothers. They still stand in our way today. We're not going to achieve this without challenges. Indeed, some of us have to come to learn from first-hand experience that in the journey of nation building and national progress, tenacity of purpose is supreme. Yet, all of this cannot happen individually. A collective effort is a requirement where we acknowledge each other's efforts and appreciate the contributions of everyone, instead of hunting for glory to tag a name or names on the wall. The purpose is much bigger than that. It is for the benefit of generations to come. In continuing the spirits of the black icons we have come to celebrate, we must remember that they stood upright. They stood resolute and determined, exhibiting at all times truthfulness without disguise, virtue without arrogance, patience without protest, humility without pretense. In that same spirit must we dedicate ourselves to the lofty ambition of bringing hope, of bringing guidance and enlightenment to our people, to all people, because humanity is one. To all people because we are of the same family. We are united, or at least we are supposed to be united. In addition to the causes our black greats stood for, we must also recognize the nuances and the challenges we face today and be a hope for the people in pursuit of progression, in search of salvation, and in need of emancipation from the slavery of materialism, individualism, and greed in this day and age. Now more than ever, we need to believe that the journey to success means taking us with the vast multitude of our black brethren caught up in the nexus of the deep culture of my color or no color. Now more than ever, we must be focused on the true picture of our goal, to come on board rather than survive the struggle, because it will waste our time and slow us down. I'm not calling for a payback time. I call you to offering something better by being the example and becoming the solution in your own rights. I'm also mindful of the fact that we are living in very challenging times. I'm mindful of the fact that the national debate in this great nation has been reduced to an all-time low in recent times. When they go low, we must go high. More than that, our arsenal must be wisdom, understanding, and elucidation. And through these inexhaustible treasures, we must meet head-on those who seek to build walls of division in place of bridges of harmony. We must encourage dialogue and cohesion, drawing others towards us through excellence of conduct and humility of character, offering guidance with kindness and love, inspiring the hearts of others and escorting them willingly towards living quality lives. These must be the hallmarks through which we are recognized and through which we can inspire the reformation of our fellow citizens and instigate an integrated community, a cohesive society, a prosperous nation, and above all, a morally sound and upright people. This is not a shallow theory. It is a proven model in the history of my community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, through the leadership of our Khilafat Caliphate. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed, who is the global head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, is leading this cause on a global scale. The global head of tens of millions in 212 nations across the world, a leadership under which all people are thriving and there's space for all to grow. I want to end with the example of those same companions who gathered around Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1,500 years ago, including the rich, the poor, the freed slaves, the nobles, and people from all walks of life. The end result was that during his own life, a man who was a slave, within a few years, Bilal was addressed by everybody, including his own masters, as Sayyiduna Bilal in Arabic, which means my master, Bilal. This was the effect of the approach that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had suggested. This was the end result of the people that followed the voice of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian when Ahmadiyyat was introduced into this country in the 1920s. And I believe that every single one of us has that spirit in ourselves to follow in the footsteps of our ancestors, of your ancestors, and have that upright, exemplary character in ourselves, to start with our homes, with our communities, and by putting our heads together, we can find the solution and be those who follow the footsteps of our forefathers. So thank you all for having me, and have a good evening. I also have a copy of the Holy Quran that I wanted to present to Joseph and to thank you for.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, before I call the supervisor, Honorable Supervisor Saladino, we have Mr. Gregory Singer, So if you are aware about Bollywood, we have somebody by the bass that he has in his voice, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. So when I heard him on the phone, I'm like, damn, this is going to be good. I'm like, this is going to be good. Because, he's one of the most senior actors. We call him the Robert De Niro of our industry, Bollywood, the Hindi industry. And when I heard Gregory, Lionel goes, oh, it's the spoken word. And I'm like, okay, it's poetry. It's wonderful. But when he called me, I'm like, I want to hear this. So please welcome Mr. Gregory Singer. Thank you, sir.
Magnificent evening, family. When someone says, damn, this better be good, you know. Wow. There's nothing wrong with levity, the beauty of levity. And how do I follow all those words that precede me? Supervisor Saladino, my beloved brother Lionel, Harry, and my beautiful, beautiful black folks. Might I call you beautiful tonight? And brothers of all derivatives and hearts and minds and ages and colors, I must say that today is a very significant day with the convergence of all of the twos. You understand? And unless we are single-cell animals, we all came from somebody. We all right with that, right? The memories, the thought, the blood, the passion, the possibility of somebody. I was asked the question when I drove up here in the rain, which was a little poetic in itself, because I drive up to the place and I'm looking for 54 Audrey, I think it is, and I'm like, I don't see a town hall. And then Lionel happened to be standing out, and my good eye caught him. I'm like, all right, I don't know if he's here, then I'm in the right place, all right? I'm just gonna be honest on that. I stand before you, although someone said spoken word, I must say I stand before you as a poet. Because poetry to me is the moment that we're living in today. The words of my brother that preceded me, the eloquent nature of the presentation, that magnificent blue man that spoke so kindly of words, and Harry inviting me down, and Lionel saying, can you come hang out with me for a minute? I'm gonna give you 3 pieces, and we're gonna see if anything I say reminds you of something that my predecessors tonight say. Tonight you hear from the poet Rage Sinclair, who happens to be the educator, therapist, father, and humble servant to the greater good, Gregory Singer. But tonight you will hear the poet Rage Sinclair. We will start poem in 3 parts. I promise to keep you engaged. The first one is called In These Steps, because although there are empty seats now, the memory is that this auditorium is full of the power and possibility of what we have created tonight. Tonight is history. Fear not your fate, for it will wait if your purpose is right and true. Today, I present to you first, In These Steps, for the elders. Excuse me, please, but have you heard of a mighty time and its many words, of a polite power draped in black and white, where the astute and sensible marched with both the day and the night? For reasons known by many, yet faced by few, from the water hose to the tattered clothes to the holes in the bottoms of holy shoes. From Alabama's Birmingham to the cuffed, wristed, humbling explanation, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. The burning of churches and lynch mobs, Sunday's best on Monday, and a great grandmother's howling sobs. For these righteous dreams we wake every morn, as we pray that again might be born loving leaders, to revive these faithless retreaters that insulate themselves in careless speculation while firmly justifying injustice in its many presentations. We will stand together as both the tunnel and the light, with scarred limbs, strong hearts, and eternal foresight. For it is we, family. For it is we, family. For it is we, the children, that shall lead them. On each other's shoulders, if need be. For we demand a stake in our destiny. And as a few might believe, this generation has slept, watched idly by as our elders have wept. Beware! For I see it, I sense it. The giant is stirring. With an educated mind prepared for soaring, we know now what needs to be done. We remember our duty on each rising sun. But with each bell that rings and the anthem that we sing brings us closer to living memories, thus to make our mark in this home of the free. That was for yesterday, that we live today. This is the voice of the many children that still wish that the dream was still the dream. This is called A Dream's Dream. As I wake my eyes to this day, I ask my wish to find a way to guide my words on this trail of destiny, and that my actions will show the certainty of my belief in everyone. Mothers, daughters, fathers, sons. You see, friend and foe walk in the same space, and with spirits open and minds wide, our heart beats the same pace. For in colors as clear as a crystal is bright, we will leave behind these desolate nights and stand with the ready of our ancestors' soul. Our backs can bear the weight of our forefathers' toll, for with reason as right as an eagle's sight, we can use our minds to face the plight of our begotten fellow man, not standing alone like shifting sands, for this youthful one has seen the blaze of the bountiful horizons of better days, of responding righteousness, not reactive regret, shouting hollow words that most will soon forget. So clear your wits and steady your step, for we've a job to do. Fear not your fate, for it will wait. If your purpose, Harry, if your purpose, Mr. Saladino, final, if your purpose is right and true, stand firm your ground, make it steady and sound. Good brother, and the dream's dream, the dream's dream. A dream's dream will shine through. And my final piece, sometimes poets take it to the audience. I have to come around here. Dazzling. From womb to world, this boy, this girl spark truth to lessons thought lost. For each sound of laughter, simple, silly chatter, remind us all that it was worth the cost. Through laws that barred and spacemen dancing upon far, our heroes still have names. Not of today, but of yesteryear's ways, you see. We are undaunted and our strength's the same. So sing upon our mountains loud, chest pressed up, strong and proud, as others wish now for our rhythm and black thing. You see, we of bullets and bars, railroads and song, as it is now, and forever will be, you are, we are, dazzling. And Brother Edmondson, Dale Anthony was one of my heroes. Was that
Didn't I say damn? Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, with a big, big, big round of applause, Honorable Supervisor Joseph Saladino. Sir.
Wow, that was phenomenal, wasn't that? Let's hear it again for Greg Singer. Just move this out a little bit. Folks, I'm going to start my words to you a little unusually. I'm going to ask the elders in the room, those who are elders in this community, in any community, those who are perceived as elders, those who are looked up to as elders, to please rise and be recognized. If you're an elder or you're recognized as an elder, please rise. And stay it. Please, sir, please rise. Please. This is not a recognition of your age, but a respect. Any other elders? Anyone else seen as an elder by others? A grandchild? Someone? A community? Yes? Please rise. And as the ultimate act of respect, I ask you all, may I proceed? Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for being here for the first ever recognition of Black History Month in the town of Oyster Bay. I join with my great buddy, my colleague, Councilman Tom Hand. Please give Tom a hand. In saying thank you for being here. Thank you to all of the incredible people who made this so very special, starting with Denise Evans Shepherd of the Oyster Bay Historical Society. Wow, wow. You are so amazing. And she does this not just on these very special occasions, but over and over and over. Teaching the history, keeping it alive. You do an incredible job, and we're so blessed to work with you. Thank you to my buddy Lionel Chitty, the Nassau County Executive Director of Minority Affairs. Lionel, we worked together in the reformation of Hicksville. We've got a lot of work together, and we're going to continue that with Tom and our board. But we appreciate your leadership. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for also doing a fine job representing Bruce Blakeman, our county executive, and reminding him that we have a big table and there's room for everyone in our table of government. Thank you to another good friend, Reverend Kent Edmonston of the Mount Olive Baptist Church. Reverend Kent, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me into your home. Thank you for sharing your parishioners. Thank you for recognizing that we are one family in the town of Oyster Bay, and we truly are a family in every way. But thank you for all you do spiritually to bring us together, to make us stronger, to help those who need our help and need God's blessings. You're quite incredible, and you certainly deserve the award that we just presented you with recently, the Reverend Martin Luther King Award in the town of Oyster Bay. So fitting. God bless you. Thanks to Tim Williams, the chairman and former chair of the Nassau County IDA. Tim, you are an incredible leader. You're bringing opportunity to everyone, black, white, every color, every religion, everyone who calls Nassau County home or works here or builds their business, builds a future for all of us together. You do an incredible job. We're so proud of you. Thank you to Abdullah Diba Imam Thank you for making this trip here. And thank you for the Quran. Thank you for your words of inspiration. It's so important, your words and what you've told us about the words of Muhammad and God, because it's universal. Don't put anyone else down. Lift them up. Lift yourself up and be proud, but come together as one to make a difference in a positive way. It's not about the fist, it's about the heart. One of the most important parts of the body, the heart, and sharing that love for one another. And as one family, one group under God, we are going to come together. We are going to build a better nation, and the town of Oyster Bay will be the example of unity for the entire nation. Thank you so much. And thank you to poet Gregory Singer. Talk about talent. You're incredible. You did a fine job. We're very lucky to have you here. Very inspirational. And it was absolutely wonderful to hear Mr. Singer sing. I also want to thank Special Assistant to Bruce Blakeman, Dan Alter. You've been an incredible friend. You work very hard in the community. And we greatly appreciate you. You've taught me very much about your faith and the importance of learning about everyone's culture. That's really what's going on. That's the lesson my brother and my sister and I learned from our father, Councilman Joe Saladino, who served here in the town of Oyster Bay. So we appreciate everyone coming together, and it feels very, very good to be the supervisor here as we host the first Black History Month celebration ever held in the town of Oyster Bay, here in Town Hall. And I want to thank all the members of our staff who made this possible, and a special thanks to Harry Malhotra. Let's give Harry a big hand. A little inside baseball. Remember you said you called Brian Nevin the idea, let's host this here, and you heard back, you said in 2.5 minutes. Well, guess what Brian was doing during those 2.5 minutes? He called me, and I said, not only absolutely, but let's make it very special, and let's build on it, and let's do a great job. And you have done that. And the speakers tonight and what we've learned is incredible. And I make you this promise from the bottom of my heart. So long as I'm here breathing and my heart is beating in this town, whether supervisor or any other role, we are going to build on this. We're going to bring more people in. We are going to teach about culture and history and motivate people to come together as one family in unity as we build a big tent in this town with room for everyone. Everyone. Thank you to Carol Gordon for your, not only for tonight, leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but all you've done. Carol Gordon's been a candidate for New York State Senate on a number of occasions. Carol Gordon leads in her community, in the Civic Association, in educational pursuits, but she helps me in the town of Oyster Bay to stay grounded, to recognize the roles of African Americans, and to expand on that. You have been an incredible friend, and quite frankly, I love you. We're so proud you've all come here. We're proud of the many local organizations, the accomplished members of the community, those with us tonight, those who continue to build a future in this town. Events like this celebration help connect us all. We build more understanding of one another. We appreciate the diversity we have in our town. Hicksville, in the town of Oyster Bay, doesn't have a village. We are the leadership of Hicksville, is the most diverse community in all of Long Island and one of the most diverse communities in all of New York State. And we are proud of that fact. Our diversity makes us strong, makes us rich. You heard the history. going back to the 17th century and how African Americans led in so many ways. And I'll bet it was an African American who inspired President Roosevelt. Maybe as he was penning a speech here on Sagamore Hill, maybe how he was reaching deep into his heart to find a solution. There are so many ways African Americans have made a big difference in this town, in this nation, and across the world. And we recognize that. This administration, this town, and what I always call this family recognizes that. So it's very important that we come together here, Black History Month, every week, every day. And it's an important celebration to recognize the many achievements of African Americans, and it's an important role in our country's history. What does it do? It makes African Americans proud of your culture. It teaches the right lesson to young people who are African American, but it does so much more than that. It builds an enormous respect among all peoples of the tradition, the culture, and especially the achievements of African Americans in this nation. It builds respect, something that maybe we've lost a bit, maybe because of the television and the way the news drags us to be at odds with one another. Maybe what we read on the internet and people who want to stir things up just for attention. But the good people, each and every one of you, are building that commonality, that unity, that respect, that understanding, and quite frankly, an awe when we think about all of the achievements of Black Americans. This event, meaning this celebration in the month of February, was the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans, and since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. African American culture has profoundly shaped American culture in so many ways: music, art, literature, sports, politics, medicine, business, and the list goes on and on and on. You know, we think of the iconic names of pioneers of Black history, and have to start with Martin Luther King Jr. Certainly Dr. King made an enormous and indelible mark in all the world. Harriet Tubman, who resided right here in this state in Auburn, New York. Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, whose son I was very proud to build a friendship with and serve with in the New York State Assembly, General Colin Powell. Someone else in government, you don't hear too much about him, but I'll get more into his history in a moment. The first African American to serve as the United States ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Edward Perkins. And then there's music, one of my favorites. Yes, I wish I was a pretty good drummer, and someone gave me a compliment earlier. Thank you, Reverend. But there's so many better musicians, so many people I look up to and have influenced me. Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, Aretha Franklin, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Albert King, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Phoebe Snow. The list goes on and on. Just think about T-Bone Walker and Muddy Waters. Without T-Bone Walker and Muddy Waters, there is no Elvis Presley. And without Elvis Presley, there is no Beatles. So God bless the spirit of people like Muddy Waters and T-Bone Walker, and think about the impact that these African American, very, very talented musicians have made upon music worldwide. I love thinking about that. I went to college in New Orleans, studied the blues a bit, and I was very inspired by the great blues artists. Some of them, we'll never know their names, but they had that talent, and they moved mountains. Some of them were recorded with professional recording organizations and companies. Some of them, maybe the best of the best, sang in church. The gospel, the word of the Lord, those gospel singers that we'll never be able to buy their record, but they're some of the most motivating and talented musicians in the history of this nation. We've talked about inventors, entrepreneurs, surgeons, astronauts, diplomats, intellects, and countless other African Americans who continue to make that mark on our nation and our world. I think we can all agree that Black History Month should be more than just a commemoration of particular events or celebrating just the most famous. It's also about a shared experience of all African Americans and how these experiences have challenged and ultimately strengthened America, not just for African Americans, but for all of us. We've had a mixed history in America, some good, some things we're not proud of, but we recognize it, we're taught it, we must remember it to come out stronger and better. So we are all playing an important role to keep these stories rich, to keep them alive. The rich history here in Oyster Bay is one of those histories which is so important to the history of our nation. We're learning from our past to develop a viable, sustainable, and better path for our nation that is inclusive, equitable, and respectful for all. A family. And really, that's our motto in the town of Oyster Bay. That's what we've been doing from the beginning, and I'm so, so happy and privileged and lucky and blessed to be the supervisor at a time when we're turning things around in this town. We raised the Indian flag for the first time at a town facility. We raised the Pakistani flag for the first time at a town facility. We recognized right in this room the Lunar New Year and brought respect and shared the culture of Asians here and Asian Americans here in the town of Oyster Bay. And now tonight, breaking ground on a new time by having the first ever Black History Month celebration. The first, but there will be many, many more to follow. And I want you all to be back, and I want you to enlighten us again and again and again. And we'll attract more people in, and we'll do this in larger ways. We'll make a movement that starts right here. But it's going to be tough to change the world. I have a friend, before I worked in government, I worked as a journalist. I was a reporter in television and radio. And I have friends that I've kept all these years, and one friend who's still a reporter today, I told him about this celebration, and we talk time to time. We stay close. We're maybe on opposite ends of the political spectrum on some issues, but our commonality is 90% or more, maybe much more. So I was talking about this issue, and the reason I share this story is to point out we still have a long way to go in areas that are obvious and other areas that aren't obvious at all. I was telling my friend, and I consider him my friend, in so many ways about tonight, how I'm looking forward to it, how we're breaking ground, how we're doing something very important that should have been done a long time ago. And he said, Joe, I'm hearing all this about Black History Month, but you're a Republican. Oh my God, it made my Sicilian boil. We have a long way to go, are you kidding? But I had a conversation, I reached into my heart and I thought with my mind, and you reminded me of why I said what I said because of your quotes from the Quran about how to lift people up and educate people. I didn't get angry. I didn't push back. I said, well, because it's the right thing to do. And remember, slavery was abolished in America by Abraham Lincoln, a Republican president. Slavery was abolished in this very state, New York State, by a Republican state Senate and a Republican Assembly. This isn't, I don't say this to promote a particular party, but to open everybody's mind to the facts, the realities, and the commonality that we share. It shouldn't be about labels. That's exactly what you were teaching us, to get away from the labels, no matter whose labels they are. Those some that are very bad, some we're told are good. But there's something going on in this nation, and I don't understand why. Frustrates me a little bit, and I want to work with all of you to be part of that change. You recognize those names. You recognize Barack Obama, George Washington Carver, Harriet Tubman, and of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But how many of you recognize the name Ambassador Edward Perkins? One. So that makes two of us in the room. Maybe Tom, because he's heard me talk about Ambassador Perkins before. Ambassador Perkins was given a very difficult job. Before he was named U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, he was called into the White House, and he was asked by the president to meet with the president in the room where Abraham Lincoln conferred with his generals during the Civil War. And he was told that we have a mission for you. You're going to go to South Africa as a representative of me, the president, and the representative of America, this nation, and you're going to end apartheid without bloodshed or civil war. Ambassador Perkins was a very bright man with a great sense of humor and turned to the president in deadpan face and said, "Yes, sir. And what would you like me to do after lunch?" But he did it, and it wasn't easy. Apartheid was ended, and when the Botha administration had to deal with America, they had to deal with a man of color. And I credit the president for coming up with that strategy. But we don't turn on News 12 and learn about Ambassador Edward Perkins. Channel 2, 4, 7, Channel 11. I see so many names of great people. Why not Ambassador Edward J. Perkins? I think discrimination exists in every dark corner of this nation, including in the media. I think because he served under President Ronald Reagan, that he's not given the credit he deserves as a man of color. We need to work together to think of one family and use Ambassador Perkins in this situation as one of those mighty examples. Look him up, teach your children about him. People ask why, Supervisor, why all these firsts in the town of Oyster Bay? Why have you and Tom Hand and the town board taken such a reversal and changed the course of this town? And for one, it's the good hearts of the town board and my colleagues, but I have to credit a man who used to sit right up there, and that was Joseph Saladino, my father. Because in the 1950s, after Dad went to Brooklyn College, played on their first undefeated football team, and then went to St. John's Law, where he was a classmate of Mario Cuomo, he went back into the service in the United States Marine Corps. And the United States at that time had begun integrating the troops for the very first time, 1950s, in Korea. And he was assigned a tent with another Marine, a very bright man, an attorney, a very loyal American. And Dad's tent mate, his name was Edward Perkins. And Dad would tell the stories of how, in his own vernacular, he would trade knuckle sandwiches with people who didn't like the fact that this Brooklyn guy, white guy, was sharing a tent and living in the same quarters with a man of color. And he said he would straighten them out right quick. So I imagine that meant he was very persistent and eloquent in his words. I think that's what he meant. But boy, oh boy, when Christmas time came around and we got that Christmas card and that handwritten letter on the stationery of the United States Embassy, and the television would go on, the news, and there'd be stories of conflicts around the world. And America's representative to the world was a man of color. And Dad would point to the television and say, "That's my buddy." Around 2007, the former administration of the town renamed the Tobay Beach Marina after my father. I was so proud. I called Ambassador Perkins and asked him if he would kindly come up from Washington and give the keynote speech at that ceremony. Ambassador Perkins said, "For Joe, absolutely." And he said, "Will Jesse be there?" "Yes, Mom will be there." Because when he would come up from Washington and visit them in their home, Mom would cook all this great Italian food that he loved. And there was this real brotherhood between the ambassador and Dad. I spent 3 days driving around in the car, taking him to places like the embassy in America, in New York City, where his name is permanently on the black granite walls of the lobby. And I learned more about my father. I learned more about myself. And one of the things he said is, here we were lawyers during wartime, trying to figure out how to incorporate American law in South Korea with sometimes South Koreans, sometimes North Koreans, and take all of this into account and be just toward people. He said it was very, very difficult. And in his speech, he said when we had to make the toughest decisions, he stood on the shoulders of Joe Saladino. I'm a tough guy, but boy, oh boy, did that bring me to tears to hear a man as great as this talking this way about my dad. So we have a long history in our family of great respect for everyone. But through this relationship with Ambassador Edward Perkins, the man responsible for ending apartheid in South Africa, we have enormous respect for him and therefore for people of color. These are the stories we need to tell, just like the stories you've been telling about the leaders in this community, just like the stories that all the speakers this evening have been telling. Because respect is something that is earned, but we have an important job. We need to go to every nook and cranny and stop discrimination in that wonderful way by lifting people up, educating people, showing them love and understanding, because everybody comes from their own walk of life. I'm proud, privileged, incredibly happy to be here tonight, because maybe we're doing a little role in opening that door, a little more, in promoting people of color, a little more, educating all the great leaders in Black America, a little more. And I hope to set an example for many other municipalities to follow, even if they're not as great as the town of Oyster Bay. Well, I've gone on quite a bit, and I thank you for letting me share some family history and maybe understand why I come, where I come from and why I'm doing what I'm doing here. So we are going to continue to remind everyone that Black history is American history. And democracy takes all of us. And we will continue to have advocacy in one direction, with unity as one family to move in the direction that we know in our hearts where we need to be. And we'll overcome all that's going on. So today, with the ongoing efforts of all of you and the leaders in our communities, we are also going to proudly recognize the contributions of extraordinary individuals who have had a significantly positive impact on our community. I'd like to take this opportunity to join with Harry in presenting, and of course, Councilman Tom Hand, in presenting Town of Oyster Bay citations to very special members of the community who make our town a great place to live and raise their families, make it a rich fabric. I do call it a mosaic. Someone mentioned before my calling the town a mosaic. Why? Because when it's a melting pot, you come up with one color and you can't distinguish any of the parts. But a mosaic is made up of the beautiful jewels that are different, but make that picture so beautiful. So I like the fact that we're a mosaic. We're going to continue to celebrate the fact that we're a mosaic, and I thank everyone involved in tonight's ceremony. I thank you all for coming here, and we especially thank so many people who have been leaders in moving us in the very place that Reverend Edmonston knows we need to be, that Mr. Singer spoke about, that each and every one of you brought to the forefront. So the first person we'll honor, and I hope you have the citations in the same order that I have on my paper, is Tim Williams, former chair of the Nassau County IDA. Come on up, Tim. Tom, please come join us. And Lionel, after you take your picture, go ahead and take the photo, and then we'll ask you to come up too. On behalf of all that are here tonight, on behalf of the 300,000 residents of America's fourth largest township, we thank you for all you have done and all you continue to do to bring pride and unity to all. Thank you very much. Take that picture again? Okay. Thank you, Tim. Let's hear it again for Tim Williams. From Amazon, Brandon Ray. We're especially proud of Amazon and the facility that's being built along the Long Island Expressway. For decades, this was the problem site that gave the town a bad name, contamination, the water tower that the paper loved to print over and over, and a site that was, quite frankly, something we weren't proud of. But today, the gorgeous building exists. Amazon took on the responsibility of cleaning up the environmental hazards, and this will be the place for hundreds and hundreds of high-paying jobs. We appreciate you and your company, and thank you for all you're doing to move us forward with unity as one town and one family. Great to see you too. Our next recipient, an honoree from 20 West Media, Gene Impert. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your leadership and for moving our town forward with unity as one family. Congratulations. Our next honoree is the principal of Hicksville High School, Raymond Williams. Wonderful. Mr. Williams is doing a phenomenal job with Hicksville School District, and we appreciate his talents. Thank you for accepting on his behalf. From Odin Development, Walter Odin. Mr. Odin, thank you so much for making such a positive mark on our town. So on behalf of everyone here today and on behalf of all of our residents, thank you for moving the town of Oyster Bay forward with unity and as one family. God bless. From the Jericho Gardens Civic Association, its president, Lloyd Campbell. Okay. Hello, Mr. Campbell. Thank you. On behalf of everyone here tonight and all of our 300,000 residents, we thank you for your leadership and we thank you for moving the town forward with unity as one family. Don't anyone leave afterwards because we're gonna bring you all up as for one group photo, if you don't mind. All right. Thank you, sir. I don't see him here, and I'm a little disappointed that he couldn't make it because Bill was a good friend of my dad when Dad was alive. But Bill? We have one for Bill Wise. He is a Westbury Village trustee. Bill Wise was the deputy Nassau County executive who worked so closely with County Executive Galata. We'll get that to him. Let's give Bill a big hand. From the Tabernacle International Good Faith Fellowship, Pastor Darren Butler. Pastor, on behalf of everyone here and on behalf of our 300,000 residents, we appreciate your leadership and for moving the town in such a positive direction with unity and as family. Congratulations. Thank you. From Uncle Don's Kitchen, Tamika Walters. Make sure that she gets that. Yeah, probably, yes. Oh, this is a special one. Because she keeps our history alive. She will remind generations of the efforts, the talents, and the remarkable achievements of African Americans in the town we love so much. And she has held every role in the Oyster Bay Historical Society, our dear, dear friend who did a phenomenal job tonight, Denise Evans Shepherd. Come on up. Talk about preserving our history and bringing us together closer and really achieving what all of these ceremonies are supposed to be about across the whole nation. Learning about Black culture, Black leaders, and the many accomplishments and the struggles that Black Americans have had to deal with for so many years and centuries. You're keeping that alive. And you're teaching others how to pass this information, important information on from generation to generation. And quite frankly, we love you. It's so well deserved. Congratulations, you're amazing. He's my buddy. He is our spiritual enlightenist and he's crazy enough to let me play drums. Let's hear it for the Mount Olive Baptist Church, Reverend Kent Edmonston. You, sir, are clearly the recipient of a gift from God in all you do for your parishioners and all of us. Congratulations and thank you. Congratulations. You got me? Here's a man, if he had to hold a card in his wallet for all the titles he's had, I don't think he'd be able to sit down. He has been instrumental in helping so many businesses, very large public corporations, to grow and grow. But he's never too busy to help the little guy and the little lady help start their business, get it off the ground, create sustainability. He's been recognized by our town when we hired him, and now he's moved on to even bigger responsibilities with Nassau County. He is our dear, dear friend. Hicksville, the town of Oyster Bay, Nassau County, and so many in America owe you such a tremendous debt of gratitude. Lionel Chitty. Congratulations, Lionel. Great job.
Thank you, thank you.
This one's getting framed.
Well deserved. Someone I had never met before, didn't expect what I was going to hear, grateful for his travel here from quite a distance, but much more importantly, the message, such an important and an enlightening message. We really appreciate his presence that made tonight so special and all he is doing to shape a new and better America. Abdullah Dibba, Imam, the Muslim community. Good to see you, brother. Thank you. Congratulations. You made this very memorable. Got it. Now, I have one more, even though each and every one in the room certainly deserves to be honored, and I hope you recognize that you have been. But I consider myself a little bit of a beginner musician. I love music, I love song, and I love the spirituality that comes from music, but few people have I heard with as much talent, as much emotion and passion as you, sir, Gregory Singer. On behalf of all of us, all of our residents, we thank you for your inspiration and for moving America forward with unity and as one family. Well deserved. I don't yet, but don't walk away. Harry, if you would kindly move the podium over, we're going to need the space here. And I am going to ask all of the honorees this evening, please bring your presentation up, and we'd love to take a photo with each and every one of you. We want to show the rest of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, also we have water and coffee when you're done on your way out. Sorry, tea.
Capers, we thank you very much. How about a big hand? Gotta get everybody in, Harry. Everybody. Anyone else would like to stand in the middle of this race? Feel free. Take your pick.
Is there anyone who is going to thank Harry?
And the entire team. We have these jackets that will, envelopes that will keep your citations dry. So please, please sing.
You're the best. You're the best. I think so. I think so. चालू भी तो लेट हुआ ना?
नहीं लेकिन 15 मिनट लेट
नहीं, 15 मिनट लेट। I think ये सबसे लंबा था।
लेकिन इतना पूरा इवेंट तो सुपरवाइजर ने कॉल किया
Last निकाले इसका। How are you, sir? Thank you, sir. Pleasure mine, sir.
first GT festival happening in June.
Oh, yes, Lionel told me about it. Yes, 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 I'm going to join you. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much. Picture I got you. I live there. Okay. I live right in front of the middle school. We have plans for that parking lot.
Yes, we
We've
do.
had plans.
We've been, that parking lot is home for us.
You honestly know what I want to do there? Jamaican Seriously, it's been 2.5 years. Still doing it.